We are not going to be started until 8 o'clock because we're waiting one more guest. And I really thank you for Thomas, Azo, and Baby Soft taking the time and doing our event. Tonight, the event is Hong Kong Voice and Hong Kong HKD movement together. And I'm very thankful that I can be part of it. And we can talk about a little bit more information about Canada and Australia on how CCP global infrastructure in their own country. And I'm really grateful that ESO is coming to help me because I mean it's really exciting. Our group can be together and talking to our guests, and then we can really in depth to knowing what's really going on. Because I did some research and I found out in France that have some CCP infiltration there, and of course, Baby Soft know a lot about how United States have the same problem, with probably more than many countries. But tonight, our focus is only on Australia and Canada because we have some guests can really give us some good information. And I would like to thank you for HKD and co-host with us tonight. And thank you for inviting our guests. And we're going to have some good conversation tonight. Is that right, HKD? Good to see you again.
Yeah, definitely.
Can you hear me very well?
Yeah, it's perfect.
Great. And since we are waiting for one more guest, we actually can introduce the first guest, Gloria. HKD, would you like to introduce our first guest, Gloria,
Yeah.
for us?
Yeah. First of all, I just want to say thank you so much for Gloria for being here. Gloria is the president of Canada and the Hong Kong Link, and she's been here in Canada for over 30 years, and she's been an activist for as a as for about human rights, about like the situation in Hong Kong ever since she's in Canada, and she's very knowledgeable in how the CCP functions and how they work in Canada. So I really look forward to hearing from her actually.
Great. Gloria, it is so grateful that you are taking some time out and share with us some of the experience and your knowledge and your information about the infiltration in Canada. Can you tell us a little bit HK Lane in Canada? Because
Okay.
I'm really new in that.
Yeah, first of all, I would like to thank the organizers and all of you for having me tonight, and also to be part of this meaningful dialogue on this very important topic of China's global infiltration. Um, Maybe I can, introduce the mission of Canada Hong Kong Link to all of you. Canada Hong Kong Link is a registered community organization established in 1997, just prior to the handover of Hong Kong to China. And our mission is to promote the furtherance of democracy, freedom, rule of law, and also, human rights in Hong Kong after its handover. Of course, we also mandated to enhance the exchange between Hong Kong and Canada in all aspects, including education, political, academic, etc. And so we are here to support Hong Kong, and that is very, very clear. And I would also like to give, ever since 1997, Canada Hong Kong Link has been one of the major Canadian organizations taking up the role of supporting Hong Kong after its handover. We are the organizations that initiated the 2015 parliamentary parliamentary hearing on the democratic future of Hong Kong. And during that time, Martin Lee, the father of democracy in Hong Kong, and myself, as president of Canada Hong Kong Link, are the two to testify before the Parliamentary Committee on Foreign Affairs and International Development. And so as a result of our hearing, it triggered a more comprehensive parliamentary study on Hong Kong. And as a result of that, both the Parliament and also the Ministry of Foreign Affairs issue a statement to support democracy in Hong Kong when Hong Kong conducted, the discussion on the democratic future in the Legislative Council. And then in 2019, when the Special Committee on Canada-China relations was formed, I was again invited to testify before the Special Committee on the situation, on the critical development in Hong Kong, and also what Canada can do to support the pro-democracy and freedom movement in Hong Kong. And we also strongly advocated for a special program that will help to accommodate, to save life of Hong Kong people who are under political persecution under the national security law. And as a result of that, and also in collaboration with other allied groups in Canada, we successfully managed to get the Parliament to implement two pathways: open work permit and open study permit for Hong Kong people. And so I think that is a very, very successful development. And ever since then, I think ever since last year, we have been receiving a lot of Hong Kong young people as well as families who have come over here to seek political persecutions through the two pathways. And so we are here not only to advocate for support policies for Hong Kong, we have also been closely monitoring the foreign affairs, foreign policy towards China, as well as China interference on Canadian soil. And so I have been, apart from being the president of Canada-Hong Kong Link, I've been serving as political analyst and also commentator on all affairs pertaining to Hong Kong, China, as well as Canada. And I have been advocating for more forceful foreign policy towards China, as well as government legislation to detect and combat foreign interference on Canadian soil.
Wow, Gloria, you guys accomplished a lot. Thank you so much for your introduction. Hey, HKD, I think we have another guest here. Can you introduce me, Bonnie, to us?
Yeah, I see Bonnie is here right now, and it's really good to see you, Bonnie. Bonnie is a member of the HKPACE Queensland, and Bonnie, would you mind sharing what the HKPACE is about and introduce how they work in Australia?
Yeah, sure, no worries. So, hi everyone, I'm Bonnie from HKPACE. So actually the full term of it is Hong Konger Protection Against Chinese Expansion. So from its name, you know that we don't just work on Hong Konger stuff, but also Chinese expansion and its attempts to expand in every country, which is particularly Australia right now. And yeah, so actually we work on campaigns that is raising awareness on the Chinese infiltration in Australian soil. And also because that's kind of like a common ground for Hong Kongers and Australians to get into the sense of Chinese infiltration and expansion everywhere. So we think that this is a good starting point to work on, and also to raise the awareness of how like an evil regime like the CCP is. And yeah, that's kind of the very, very brief background of our organization's aim. And also, because we know that, like Gloria said, a lot of the governmental departments are actually working on investigating or like that kind of stuff on the Chinese infiltration as well. So actually, we try to lobby some of the MPs here in Australia and also the senators. And then we talk to them about what's happening in Hong Kong, what's happening in other places like Tibet and also East Turkestan, and also our suffering. And also that this is expanding to Australia. You can see all the infiltration, all the signs are getting obvious. And also, we try to convince them to take actual actions. But then so far as the discussion will go later, we will see that the Australian government is still very kind of soft on this kind of stance. And so we think that actually lobbying is not enough and we need actual groundwork actions. So that's why we also get into those grassroots organizations, and also we keep an eye on every Australian political issue, for example, like the refugees, the Aboriginal issue, to try to kind of find a common ground to know each other's political background and also talk about more things, for example, like Chinese infiltration, to slowly introduce them that the policies actually are not enough on Australian soil to defend their own interest, kind of that logic. So yeah, and also apart from that, we also do political education for Hong Kongers, because we think that actually right now we can see there are a lot of activism around the world, for example, protests, assemblies, and also we write petitions and statements and stuff. But then we need to make sure that every Hong Konger is informed about the political situation and how to communicate with Australians and also people around the world on what they have to do and also the ideologies behind, so that our actions won't be just like paying lip service or that kind of stuff. We want deep and actual actions instead of superficial like images. So yeah, that's kind of the work that we are working on. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing your information about your organization and what you do. And I have some questions for both of you. The first one is, how far has the CCP global infiltration plans have been carried out so far in both of your country? Bonnie, can you talk about it first?
Yeah, sure. So I think I have broken them down into different aspects. So the first of all I'd like to say is on like level like infrastructure, and I'll talk about them one by one sort of later, and I'll just pinpoint them right now. So actually we can see that quite a lot of infrastructure like the Port Darwin and also the Keswick Island is infiltrated by Chinese companies, actually state-owned companies in Australia. So this is a very bad sign because some of them are actually linked to like military strategic like locations, for example, the ports, and also for Keswick Island is deeply um, is deeply is deeply harming the life of the locals on that island, because actually they're Australians, but then what we can see now is that they are not allowed home, and this is the how the problem has get big enough to. So another thing I'll say is the economic infiltration. So it's because of the Australian over reliance on the Chinese markets. So we can see that now we have trade war with the Chinese government on like Aussie wine and also beef and barley, something like that. And also another thing that I would like to mention later on is the rainforest, which is actually a very kind of like a hot issue just now. And so what happened is the Chinese state-owned company is trying to dump toxic chemical waste into Tasmania rainforest, Tarkine, and the locals are actually legit fighting for it to kind of stop the Chinese state-owned company to do that, so as to kind of like protect their natural soil and the economic and the environmental importance of the national park. So this is another very important issue. And also on the university level, like academic freedom, many people have spoken about it, and then we know that actually it's deeply infiltrated by the Chinese government here in Australia. And also I think I bet you guys have seen some news about the Tennis Australia, which is the Australian Open,
Yes, yes.
not allowing people to wear its pang shui shirts into the event. So I'll talk about that a little bit too, but it's just like a brief introduction right now. And also parliamentarily, actually there is infiltration as well, because we can see that some of the senators or MPs actually they are corrupted and have links to the CCP. And yeah, I think this is pretty much all the very, very brief aspects of how Chinese infiltration is happening in Australia.
Wow, that's crazy. Even rainforest. That's a very good information. How about Gloria? Can you talk about that in your country, in Canada?
Well, most recently, the Canadian Security Intelligence Service, or what we call CSIS, unprecedentedly met with Canadian MPs and senators and gave very serious warning to our parliament regarding China influence by means of coercion, subversion, and disinformation. And CSIS has a list of the targeted parliamentarians, and they describe the China interference in Canada as being a sophisticated, frequent, and insidious operation. And to me, this warning from CSIS, it's not a surprise because based on my observation, China has not only become a major threat to Canada, but also to global democracies. And as compared to U.S. embassy that has only close to 60 diplomats stationing in Canada, the Chinese embassy has an exceptionally large force of more than 160 diplomats. And you would wonder why they have so many more and what these extra staffs are for. And apart from the normal diplomatic tasks, I could easily imagine that many of them are engaged in tasks beyond the normal diplomatic jurisdiction. And actually, among the Five Eyes democratic allies, Canada has been a major target of China's influence. Uh, and, uh, and it has actually been occurring in several sectors, which I'm going to talk about in greater details later on. That include the community sector, the media sector, and also the political sector. And also, among the Five Eyes democratic allies, Canada is by far a major target of China's influence for several reasons. Number one, we have the cutting edge technology and natural resources that China needs as its expands its economy and military power. And number two, we are also a stepping stone to the US, our neighbor, and also China's main adversary. And this is especially important when China and US are in the current Cold War. By infiltrating into Canada, China can also get access to classified information of the Five Eye allies, especially US. And last but not least, the critical mass of mainland Chinese immigrants in Canada provides China with the political leverage to interfere with our politics. And there are more than 1.3 million Chinese Canadians in Canada. And over half of this population are from mainland China. And with the population being concentrated in a few cities such as Toronto, Vancouver, Calgary, Edmonton, and Montreal, it's so much easier for the pro-China camp to influence on voting results, especially in the swing ridings. And so I think when we have time later on, I'm going to introduce how the China infiltration operates in the community, media, and also political sectors.
That sounds great, but it's just very scary. 160 diplomats in your country. doing? I mean, they must be doing a lot.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We have always been talking about what they are here for, and I won't be surprised. Because I think for the U.S. embassy they only have 59 diplomats here, but then for China, I think they have 163. There may be some slight changes ever since then, but that should be a very close figure to close figure. And we always speculate that probably all these extra staffs are here to organize the United Front organizations so that they can infiltrate in various aspects of our society. Some of them could be here for, to serve as agents, engage in espionage activities. So uh, you can use your imagination
Absolutely,
to
yeah.
figure out what they are here for.
Thank you so much. Bonnie, you have mentioned about economic freedom. I'm going to have a question that why is Australia and Canada is a major part of CCP global infiltration? Do you think it's because of the economic freedom part, or do you think they have other purpose? Bonnie, can you a little bit kind of give me a little bit insight info in that? Maybe Bonnie just step away. How about Gloria? Can you a little bit on that? Do you think what plan?
Well, I think historically, China always has a very consistent mission of using its communist ideology to infiltrate
Mm-hmm.
into the rest of the world. And I think in recent years, you can see that the Five Eye allies have been playing a more and more important role in rallying all liberal democracies together in order to combat China and Russia interference. And and Canada being a member of the Five Eye Democratic Allies. And also, as I have mentioned previously, just now, that we also possess a lot of cutting edge technology and natural resources. Uh, uh, I'm quite sure we are naturally one of the targets of China's infiltration. And to cite some example here, um, Huawei's 5G technology is based on Nortel, meaning
Mm-hmm.
that Nortel is a Canadian telecommunication company. So they
That's right.
stole our core technology and they developed the present 5G technology. And even for the Skynet surveillance system, the core technology was originated from Canada as well. And it's just that China registered the patent right on our core technology, and then they develop it into a mega social control, mechanism. They even exported it to other dictatorial regimes all over the world. So I think from Canada, they can get a lot of cutting edge technology and natural resources. Recently, they even tried to buy some of our gold mines, a gold
Oh,
company,
wow. Oh my,
yeah, in the
wow.
Arctic. And I'm quite sure that will be related to the geopolitical importance of our Arctic area. And so it's not just about infiltration into our economic and trade sector, but it is also, acquiring some of the strategically important infrastructure as well as location around the world in its expansion, in its aggressive expansion to other parts of the world.
Wow, it sounds like the ultimate goal is not just economic. They want to get the technology from your country, natural resource, and they trying to be taking the power in your country too. That is their ultimate goal. Do you agree?
Oh yes, absolutely, absolutely. You know,
Wow.
it's um, well, there's a multidimensional objectives of China in its global strategy of infiltration. Say, for instance, when China tries so hard to promote the One Belt, One Road, and also the funding from the Asian infrastructure banks, actually, China has successfully acquired a lot of strategically important infrastructure in the poorer country. When they fail to repay the loan owing to China. So
That's right.
I think
Mm-hmm.
Professor C.K. Lee has actually done a very comprehensive research on that aspect, and she has published a book on Africa, and she has also conducted comprehensive research in other parts of the world that has adopted the One Belt One Road initiative. And as a result of her research and observation, actually majority of the One Belt One Road initiative have failed. However, of course, China won't talk about it. And this
Yeah,
is
yeah, I agree.
yeah, to me, this is almost like that it's about expansion. It's about uh, acquisition of strategically important infrastructure, natural resources, and also some of the significant geopolitical base in the world. So I think we need to uh, you know use a more open concept in analyzing why China offers so many different initiatives around the world.
Thank you so much, Gloria. Bonnie, are you back to taking a little bit tea?
Yeah, so sorry. I think my
That's
internet was a
okay.
little bit unstable. Yeah.
Oh no, it's
Yeah.
no problem. I sometimes I had to get some tea too, and I was like, okay. I mean, but after you listening to Gloria, do you see Australia having the same major problem? Can you tell us a
Yeah,
little bit
I
more
think
about it?
yeah, sure. I think it's quite similar actually, but maybe I'll word it into like a concept. Like I think what China is trying to do or attempting to do is actually neocolonialism.
Yeah,
And I know that I know that this word is not like commonly used for like developed countries because what we are talking about now is like Canada and Australia, they are actually developed countries. But then this term is normally used as on like for example, China working on developing countries. But in that kind of sense, actually, I think even Australia and Canada are developed countries. This kind of neo-colonialism concept still applies because we know that right now countries like Australia are exchanging their primary products with the Chinese manufactured ones. And also China is dominating on the local economy. And also, countries like Australia and Canada are actually becoming heavily indebted to the Chinese government. And the Chinese government, therefore, then exerts greater weight on the local political, cultural, or even security dynamics. And we can see that this is exactly what neocolonialism is about. And we know that this kind of expansion is not just targeted at one single country, but literally like kind of all the democracies around the world without them knowing. So I think this is very alerting and very important to understand and to recognize the problem and to rectify it as soon as possible. And hopefully we are doing something right now to trying to cope with the problem. But then why China is being like so aggressive, attempting to control other countries, like for example politically and also economically, is because we find like actually China is facing a lot of problems inside the country. For example, their one-child policy makes them facing aging population that they can't actually sustain their labor force for the future years. So that's why I think China is so aggressively expanding on other countries' soil and also extracting their power, extracting their resources to kind of like try to place them on a kind of like dominating position over the other countries is because they want to maintain their power, even though inside of China there are a lot of social or economical problems happening. So I think not only Australia or Canada is facing this kind of like threats, but in general, because China wants to dominate and kind of like neo-colonize every country that they can, so that they can be kind of like what they call themselves a central kingdom around the world. So that's what I think.
Wow, they are much more aggressive than I really read in all the news. HKD, I think you have more questions for our guest to ask you our guests about your questions. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mariana. Actually, Gloria, I know that you have been working with CBC TV on a program called, excuse me.
Sorry, I can't hear you.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Oh, yes, I can hear
Yeah.
you now.
I know that you've been working with CBC TV on a program called National, talking about the infiltration in Canada. And when I was watching that program, it was like the first time that I ever seen a program that mentioned about CCP infiltration in Canada, actually. So can you tell us a little bit more about how CCP influence in the media sector, in academic sector, or other parts in Canada?
Okay, now this may take a little bit more time because as I have mentioned, I would like to address our concern towards three sectors tonight because of the time limit. Number one, the community sector. Number two, the media sector. And last but not least, the political sector. Now, in terms of community, actually, prior, there's a United Front Work Department being established in 1979 under Tang with 9 bureaus, each reflecting areas of perceived threats to CCP. And the United Front Work is actually a new form of China global authoritarianism. And it aims to claim the community representation and exert influence in all policies related to China through its influencer network of United Front organizations. In Canada, prior to 1997, Hong Kong Canadians represent the largest population under the category of Chinese Canadian. But since 1997, there has been a continuous influx of mainland Chinese immigrants. And so far, the Chinese Canadians from mainland China constitute the largest segment. And the total number is over 600,000 as compared to around 500,000 Chinese Canadians of Hong Kong descent or Hong Kong Canadians. Well, these Chinese Canadians from mainland China in general are very receptive to the nationalistic sentiment and also ideological influence from Communist China. And as a result of that, the Chinese embassy, with the help of some of their advocates and also proxies, managed to organize over 400 United Front organization based on professional affiliation, clanship affiliation, commercial or political affiliation. And some of them are just purely cultural interest groups. And they are so well defined that they cover almost all areas of our social life in Canada. And these United Front organizations, they have actually have the following missions. Number one, they are supposed to charm, co-opt, or attack individuals and groups through ideological, emotional, or material means, and also to reward them with stability maintenance fund, 維穩費, or free trips to China and other benefits in China if they are being co-opted. And number two, they are also meant to exercise surveillance and policy as a surveillance and policy, policing agency of Chinese and diaspora communities. And last but not least, they also implement programs or campaigns in Canada in order to create a different voice to obstruct the works of those community organizations that truly work in the best interest of the community. I think in 2019, 2020, and also 2021, they have mobilized a lot of so-called international mainland Chinese students, as well as members of their United Front organizations to obstruct our freedom of expression as we organize rallies in Canada, and that happens to several cities. So it's not just confined to Toronto, and they also intimidate activists of diaspora communities who are critical of the China policies. And as one of the key organizers of Hong Kong support movement in Canada, I have received numerous life-threatening calls from anonymous callers. And so these are some of the example of what is happening in the community. Actually, the CBC's first episode regarding critics of China, harassment of critics in China, in Canada, is a very good episode that I would like to highly recommend to all of you, because it really summarizes, the different way by which CCP infiltrate into our community, discredit those people who are critical towards the China policies. And apart from that, they also infiltrate into the media sector. Actually, over the last 30 years, they have the global media strategy of China mainly focus on promoting its official line on China-related issues, or attacking and discrediting groups and communities that are perceived to be threats to China. And there are 5 tactics by which the Chinese government controls or influences foreign media. Number 1, they control media through ownership or by pro-China business interests. Number 2, they also supply content from mainland Chinese media to overseas media. Say, for instance, Xingtao and Mingpao in North America have been receiving content for the China and Hong Kong section without a single word being edited, and they have been incorporated into our local newspapers. So that's why quite often you can see 2 different narratives being covered by these newspapers. And number 3, they also deny unfriendly media access to news, and also rewarding others with exclusive access. And number 4, they also pressure independent international media or management, editors, and reporters. Actually, I have been a victim of this, the so-called the censorship of media under pressure from the Chinese embassy, because in 2019, one of the major national Chinese language television station in Canada, the Fairchild TV, the management actually has announced that their reporters cannot interview with me, despite that I'm the spokesperson for some of the social actions. And this is a direct result of pressure from the Chinese embassy. And next, there's also infiltration of Chinese agents into our local media. And last but not least, there's also cyber attacks and also disinformation campaign. I'm not too sure whether I should go on, because there's also the infiltration into the political arena. Maybe I should stop here and let Bonnie join in, and then maybe later on I can also talk about the infiltration in the political arena, because that will be another big topic.
Yeah, thank you so much, Gloria. It's actually very, very insightful. 'Cause it, like from what I've heard, it feels like the infiltration is really around us when if we are in Canada or in Australia. Um, yeah. So Bonnie, I know that you're a student also in Australia, and you've personally experienced how CCP infiltrates the academic system in Australia. Can you tell us about how they infiltrate in the academic sectors or other areas in Australia?
Yeah, so I think I'll just introduce the uni infiltration in Australia right now first. So I think some iconic incidents are, first of all, the University of Queensland. So I think most of us know that Drew Pafler is an anti-China activist, and then actually he got suspended by University of Queensland after holding rallies against human rights abuses in China. But then we know that he is actually an Australian and he's a citizen. He's not just like a random Hong Kong or Chinese dissident or something. But then it shows that actually, even if you're Australian, you're not protected from the Chinese infiltration in Australia, and you can get suspended whenever you say something supporting Hong Kong or also like criticizing on China. So another findings that we have noticed is that the adjunct professor Su Jie is actually employed by the university, but then his position is actually at the same time the Chinese consulate general. So it's actually quite conflicting because he is actually kind of appointed to handle the Confucius Institute, which is one of the departments under the United Front work of the Chinese government. And then he is trying to promote the Confucius Institute, and they frame that as a gateway to Chinese culture, where we can see that actually there is heaps of like propaganda stuff. Like they are saying that actually Uyghur culture is Chinese culture, but they are not admitting that they are putting the Uyghur people into concentration camps, and also they never mention about the Tiananmen massacre. So this is kind of like a brainwashing propaganda exported overseas in Australia. And also, actually, about 20% of UQ's revenue is from the Chinese international students. And it means that if the Chinese international students are trying to boycott or trying to not to study in Australia anymore, those Australian universities will immediately suffer huge losses economically. And yeah, so this is kind of the infiltration stuff happening in UQ. And also for in Sydney, New South Wales, actually a Human Rights Watch researcher, Ms. Pearson, was subjected to an intense campaign demanding that she would be fired by the University of New South Wales last year after she deleted a tweet promoting her criticism of Beijing. So basically, the uni is controlling even like those professor and also lecturers and teaching staff not to comment on Beijing, or otherwise they will get fired or they will get like threatened. So actually, it's not only about students, but also the general academic freedom in Australia is getting very destroyed and distorted. And this is the work of the Chinese government, and it has been ongoing for quite a few years now. And that leads to the government to launch an inquiry to university infiltration in Australia. So basically, the report hasn't been finished, I think. But then I also joined the Human Rights Watch on their conference when they published a paper saying that the title of it is "They Don't Understand the Fear We Have," and it kind of like documented many interviewees from Hong Kong, from Taiwan, any Chinese dissidents on how they feel about being unsafe and insecure on campus, especially when they are doing activism or protest or trying to speak about China, even in lectures or in like discussion groups. So I think this is very much hindering the freedom of speech and also academic freedom in Australia. And I'll count that as uni infiltration. And another part of it that I mentioned in the beginning very briefly is another aspect, which is about kind of like infrastructure or an environmental aspects. So I think this is a very hot issue right now, which is happening right now. So that's why I want to like kind of pitch in a little bit. So actually right now the Chinese state-owned company, which is the China Minmetals Corporation, they actually own MMG, which is a mining company. They are trying to dump the toxic chemical waste in the Tasmania rainforest called Tarkine. And the most important part of this issue is because actually no one is sufficiently speaking about that right now, and we can't see it on mainstream media. And what's happening on the ground right now is a bunch of climate activists and also locals, Tasmanian locals, trying to protect their own soil, their own ancient rainforest from the Chinese infiltration. They are fighting it on the ground against the police, but then this is not actually reported on any mainstream media, newspaper and stuff. So I hope to draw more attention towards this issue right now, because actually it's quite devastating that even locals, when they are trying to fight and trying to raise their voice and raise awareness on this kind of infiltration issue, but they still find it so hard to protect their own homeland. So I think, hopefully some action will work, because they are actually protesting right now every day and then trying on blockade, and also they are building tents in the rainforest and campaign trying to resist the police aid for the Chinese company. Because actually I think right now the police is kind of aiding the Chinese company to continue with their work on dumping the toxic chemical waste in the rainforest, and the locals are just trying to fight back. So that's pretty much what's happening just now. Yeah, thank you.
So this is
Yeah.
happening like very recently, like right
Oh,
now.
it's like today, yesterday, and the day before,
Wow.
basically throughout this week, and more actions will come. So I would suggest you guys to follow Bob Brown Foundation. Is an organization working actively on this kind of issue, especially this action. They are actually coordinating it and organizing the blockade and every protest, basically just on this issue. So yeah, they will have the latest news, and I mostly gain the insight of the news from them too. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe I can also share my observation of the infiltration of China into the academic sector in Canada. Well, basically, maybe some of you have already heard about the Thousand Talents Plan, and which actually lead to a lot of intellectual property theft in Canada. One of the CBC episodes on China interference focus on this topic, and this is a plan that aims at recruiting leading scientific experts, either by offer of rewards or threat of punishment, particularly for those who have family members in mainland China. And it's very commonly used by hostile states. And already 15 Canadian academics have already participated in the Chinese program. And they are from all strategically important sectors, including computing, electronics, engineering, vaccines, chemistry, and artificial intelligence. And in the CBC episode, basically it talks about one of the very recent issue, that is the theft of vaccination, intellectual products to China by one of the mainland Chinese scientists in Canada. And so quite often by donating money or supplying research funds as well as manpower to continue with the research project, China retains rights to the intellectual product created. And then they transfer the hard earned intellectual capital out of Canada, resulting in job loss, revenue, or even public services. and it also diminished our Canadian global advantage. I have talked in the beginning of your Clubhouse discussion about Huawei. Huawei's core technology is based on Nortel core technology, and that is a very illustrative example of the intellectual property theft. And the Chinese program quite often provides salaries and research funds, or even lab space at university in China. And they also encourage the scientists to set up shadow labs in China, working on identical research. So I think this kind of infiltration in the academic sector has been exposed by a lot of English media in recent years. So I think it's very important for us to raise public awareness to what is happening here.
Yeah, thank you so much, Gloria. It is. Yeah, listening to this, it feels like the infiltration is actually not behind the scene. You know what I mean? It's actually very close, like very next to us. That's how I'm feeling right now. So because we're 48 minutes into our discussions now, I'm going to move on to our last two questions, and so that we can save more time for people to come up and ask more questions. Now, Gloria, I just have a quick questions.
Yeah.
This might be a very deep one. How serious the result of the infiltration in the government of Canada, and especially after the election last year? Because I've heard a lot of rumors saying that there's a huge disinformation campaign that
Yes.
CCP was
Yes. Mm-hmm.
holding to influence it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you for your question. This is a very, what should I say? This is a very, this is a sector that has been seriously eroded by the China interference. Now, CCP has always been capitalizing on the openness and inclusiveness of our democratic system to exert influence on our policy formulation process, either through its United Front organizations or through direct or indirect interference in our election. Actually, beginning from 2019, our Canadian Security Intelligence Service has been calling for our federal government to develop a public foreign interference strategy. And they have, in its reports, they have highlighted that many MPs, senators, and also high-ranking government officials have been targets of the Chinese Communist Party's infiltration and also compromise, regardless of the status in government or opposition. And they have released, CSIS has released a primer on foreign interference that is different from the normal diplomatic conduct. And this includes efforts such as exploitative relationship through agents using sex to compromise the target politicians. And it could also be gifts in terms of money, assets, or even power positions. It could be free luxurious trips to China, blackmail, bribes, disinformation, cyber attacks, as well as espionage. And these efforts of benefits aim at gaining leverage over politicians and pressure them into influencing debate and decision making within the government. Now, in the CBC's episode on elite capture, they have reviewed that a lot of our politicians have actually turned themselves into lobbyists or even advisors to the state corporations of China as soon as they have stepped down from the public office. And this is pretty scary because you don't even know which country's best interest did they serve before when they were still elected members of our parliament. And unlike Australia and US, that have legislations in place to require individuals or organizations to register their relationship with foreign power, with their own governments. Canada does not have any central transparency and reporting mechanism to detect, combat foreign influence, and also to actually hold people accountable if ever they have been hiding their hidden agenda of serving the foreign power. Now, Canada is very ill equipped to detect and combat foreign interference. In last year, during the federal elections, I have witnessed a series of, disinformation campaign aimed at discrediting candidates that are critical of China policies. And one specific illustrative example is Kenny Chiu, who has proposed the Bill C-282, which is the Foreign Agent Registry bill. And during election, the United Front, I see a very well orchestrated disinformation campaign involving WeChat, Weixin, and also websites of the mainland Chinese in Canada, including Yok BBS and QQ.ca. There's also Chinese language Canadian community newspapers and media, and last, by the official media of China. And the local United Front organization also launched campaign to amplify the disinformation campaign. And eventually, because of the disinformation campaign, some of the outspoken candidates lost their seats. However, our government nor Elections Canada managed to detect and combat this disinformation campaign in a timely manner. So I think the lessons we have learned is that our government need to revisit our comprehensive strategy to combat foreign influence. We also need to educate our general public that anti-CCP is not anti-Chinese nor anti-Asians. I have actually, based on my observation of the recent disinformation campaign, I am quite sure that this kind of disinformation campaign could be launched again in future elections. And already, I have seen signs of manipulation going on around the anti-Asian hate campaign in Canada, in which the pro-China camp tried to demonize people being critical of Chinese policies as being racist.
Yeah, thank you so much, Gloria. I think that's you've actually made a very good point. Also stating that what they will do in the future, because I've seen personally how they managed to manipulate elections in Hong Kong, and I've seen the exact same thing that they're doing now in Canada. Thank you so much. Bonnie, I know that you've been working with candidates who are trying to participate in the elections in Australia as well, right? Have you seen something similar, how CCP infiltrate in Australia towards the elections or even the government?
Oh yeah, sure. And I just want to respond to one point that Gloria raised just now, which is the racist claim. I think this is a very interesting topic because actually Australia is now being called a racist country by the Chinese people just because of this kind of like this information, and they are trying to smear us. And what Australia has done is, then as a result, we are called a racist country right now, which is definitely not true. And they are just trying to distort every narrative that they can and exploit it. And also, just now Gloria mentioned the Asian hate and stuff like that. I know that it may be a little bit off topic, but then I've heard that there's something going on in the UK as well. Like a bunch of Chinese nationalists organized the like Asian hate or something like that, or no racism, something like that, that kind of protest. But then all they did is this is just like a backdrop, and then what they actually want to promote is that or if you're anti-China, if you are criticizing on China, then you are racist, and then they are trying to stop people from doing that just to smear them. Yeah. So I think something happened over the UK, but I'm not really like knowledgeable of it to comment on it too much. Okay, so I'll go back to the Australian side of the parliamentary infiltration. So yeah, I have been working with Max Mock. He is actually part of HKPACE as well, but he's in Melbourne, and then he's actually electing for the seat of Chisholm, and he's trying to get Gladys Liu unseated, and I'll mention more about her later. And also another candidate that I'm working with is Drew Pavlou, who is the guy got suspended from UQ, and he's actually trying to get elected as Senate for the next election. So both of them are running under the party called Democratic Alliance, and this is a brand new political party that just got registered, and we have got all the we have met all the requirements for the new party. So I think we have a solid support here for the anti-Chinese government, anti-CCP movements here, because otherwise we won't have such huge support from local Australians, because they are all Australian citizens and all have voting rights to support us. Okay, so speaking of the infiltration part, I'll just kind of like break it down into two major parties here in Australia. One is Liberal and one is Labor. So I'll just mention about the Labour Party's representative of being infiltrated first. So I think we mentioned it before about the Belt and Road Initiative, and actually Dan Andrew, he's from the Labour Party. He is the guy who signed the treaty for Australia, like the Victorian government. Because actually, if you are in Australia, you can the states can kind of like independently work on this kind of deals with other companies or other businesses without notifying the Commonwealth government or like the General Morrison government. So that's why he could sign it, and then that caused a huge outrage and backlash. So people are asking like, why are you signing this? We all know that this is a CCP scam or something. So people are really against this, and also kind of like talk badly about Dan Andrews a lot. And another thing about him is that he actually got an advisor called Marty, and then Marty is actually named as a special consultant to the Syndon Association of Australia, and this is part of a network of groups run by the CCP's United Front work. So again, this is another example of how easily the CCP is infiltrating Australia, because actually as an advisor, this staffer can affect Dan Andrews' decision a lot. And also another electorate officer of Dan Andrew, her name is Nancy. And then actually Nancy once undertook a CCP propaganda training course, and last year she actually posted a series of articles and videos on social media suggesting that the coronavirus was created by the US and transported to China, something like that. Really, really conspiracy and like Chinese propaganda. And Dan Andrews is actually repeatedly defending both of them. So we can see that the signs or like the evidence of Chinese infiltration in candidates such as Dan Andrew in the Labour Party is very obvious. And after speaking of the Labour Party, I'll just try to strike a balance and to talk about the Liberal Party as well. So it's kind of related to Max Mock's campaign. But then what's happening is Gladys Liu, actually, she has a lot of suspicion. Like she is suspected to be the United Front Work associate. And this is still not disproved by her, because she actually got no evidence of not working for United Front Work, but we have a lot of evidence for supporting that she is actually working for, or like she worked for those United Front work departments. Those are the organizations or associations for, like, for example, facilitating the trade between Australia and China, and also some of the cultural associations that are under the United Front work department's propaganda. So we can see that actually, instead of having her staffer or her advisor as a CCP spy, Gladys Liu herself is highly suspected to be a CCP spy, and she still fails to disprove that, or like to debate for that. So that's why Max Mock, he's trying to get elected to get her unseated. And Max Mock's slogan for the campaign is actually puts Gladys last instead of vote for Max Mock. Vote for Max Mock is actually the second part of it, but the main part of it, and what we want to do very much, is just to unseat Gladys. And actually, we actively kind of like communicate with the Liberal Party, and also like we email them, and also trying to write petitions that if you change and not get Gladys as the candidate for Chisholm, then we will stop any interference or any attacks on her, and especially her seat. And another noticeable incident with Gladys Liu is that we know that the Australian Electoral Commission, AEC, is responsible for all the kind of like the electoral affairs. But then we found that actually there is a suspected electoral fraud organized by Gladys Liu and her office and her campaigning team. So what happened is that we know that whenever is like election day, or like it's getting closer to the day, we will get some information from the government, from the electoral commission, that's how to vote, or like what do you where do you put the tick, or something like that. But because in Australia we do the preferential system, which is putting 1, 2, 3, 4 next to the candidates that you want, so it's not just a tick. But then some very for example, green voters, like they never voted before, they just turned 18, they just got registered as a voter, they don't know how to vote exactly. And then what Gladys Liu and her team did is printing and also posting, putting a banner, or like a call flute, we call, right next to the AEC, the Electoral Commission's poster, and they are using the same color, the same font, everything pretty much similar, and there is no Liberal Party logo or any like Gladys Liu logo on it. And then it writes in Chinese, like traditional Chinese, that the correct voting method is to put 1 next to the Liberal Party candidate, which is who is Gladys Liu, and then that's the correct way to vote. But then if you're a very fresh voter, you just got registered, this is your first time voting, you may recognize that this is the correct way of voting, and also this information is from the AEC, the governmental department, instead of from the Liberal Party candidates. So it's really, really confusing, and this is considered as like an electoral fraud. So we think that actually corruption and Chinese infiltration is happening concurrently in Australia, and this is very notifiable. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much, both of you, actually giving us a
Wow.
really in-depth information about how CCP infiltrating both countries. Marianne, what do you think? Like, I know you live in the States.
Oh, I'm such an eyes opening for me about that is China have a huge ambitions to conquer the world. I mean, it is scary, especially they're spending on, I mean, the stability on maintenance fee, just like Gloria said, the one fee is ridiculous. I mean, after hearing both of you, I feel like I'm sheltering myself in a very poor little state. I may have to move to Canada or Australia to learn more about what's going on in the world. But I really appreciate it. It's really eye-opening. Uh, right now we have some time. Let's just let some audience to ask you some question, because I'm sure, besides KD and me, that I'm I'm very curious. I'm personally just really learning a lot. If any audience would love to talk to Gloria or Bonnie about the Australia and Canada, the situation, please raise your hand. And I have Aso in here. Aso, do you have some questions for our guests?
Yeah, since Gloria mentioned about Nortel, I have some very personal feelings about Nortel because I was a stock investor of Nortel back then, and then when it went Chapter 11, my stock went south also, of course. So that's why I am against the CCP on the infiltration of Nortel. So my question for Nortel is that how come when Nortel went south, what the Huawei did that can capture all the patents and most of the intellectual property of Nortel rather than other like Canadian or US company or European company. So what did Huawei do to get those patents? So, I'm curious. Yeah.
Okay. Uh, yeah, thank you very much for your question. Actually, I'm not in the IT or telecommunication sector. However, I do have a very extensive connection with people working in different fields. And based on what I have heard from, uh, from someone who's working for Huawei, and he told me that when he conducted the various research, right, for Huawei, he noticed that there's a file of the Nortel core technology in their data bank. And so this is pretty scary. Of course, he didn't dare to mention anything in his company, in Huawei. But then he shared that information with me, and also some other Canada Hong Kong Link members as well, that it's pretty scary for him to discover the entire file of Nortel technology being found in the Huawei system. So I think this is a very concrete evidence that the core technology of Nortel has been stolen. I don't think it's something that is known to Nortel when Nortel failed to sustain in the industry, but it was actually discovered later on.
So you're saying that the industry espionage of Huawei
Yeah,
is
yeah.
what's going on even before Nortel dissolved, right?
Yeah. I
Right.
think actually, I'm not too sure about the time frame because he didn't mention. But that's definitely this is a typical example of industrial espionage.
Thank you. Well, my second question about is recently there's a book released in US called Red Handed. It was talking about the political infiltration of CCP in the United States, the Bidens, the Bush, and then also I think one of the chapter mentioned about Trudeau's, and then Justin Trudeau's father has been what should I say, China's sympathizers since
Yeah,
back
yeah.
then, many years ago. And then my question to you, or maybe to Bonnie in Australia also, because I know that Kevin Rudd, the previous Prime Minister of Australia, even have a Chinese name, Lok Hatman. So I would like to know is that in the Canada or Australia, are there some kind of like security department so they can clean the candidate or to check whether the candidate has been a Manchurian candidate all along, so that you guys know that they are safe candidate for any political position. Just wonder. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Maybe I answer your question first. Yeah. Trudeau has always been a sympathizer of the Chinese Communist Party. I think because he has inherited that from his father, Pierre Trudeau. And even as of today, I understand that the Prime Minister's office has been surrounded by a big group of lobbyists working in the best interests of China. And that's why when Freeland uh, became the deputy prime minister, she was the former minister of foreign affairs. There was no transition between her and also the new minister. I think it's very obvious that Trudeau doesn't want to pass Freeland's strong stance to the next minister. And as of today, anything to do with China, uh, instead of saying that it's under the jurisdiction of the foreign affairs minister, I would say is strongly being held and also determined within the prime minister's office. And this is almost like a known secret to a lot of insiders in the government. And I have heard about that, from so many different people working in the government. So I think I would say in general, Canadian politicians, whether they are from the Liberal Party, Conservative Party, NDP, Green Party, or Bloc Québécois, I think in general they are very, what should I say, inexperienced. They are not. They are very inexperienced in dealing with China. Many of them still hold on the illusion that by engaging China, we will be able to sustain our economic and trade relation with China. And some of them even believe in the false claim that Canada heavily rely on our economic and trade relations with China. Actually, that is not true, because out of the, among the exports, I think the exports to China only constitute less than 5% of our total export amount. So I think it illustrates that as of today, a lot of Canadian politicians still don't understand uh, a lot of the truth about China, and also the risks in dealing with China without any without conducting any due diligence, or without any security measure being taken to safeguard our national security and interests. And that's
Thank
why
you
we
so
have
much.
been advocating for the Foreign Agent Registration Act, just like the one in the US and also Australia, so that all individuals, groups, or companies that are working with foreign power should register themselves with our government. This is meant to enhance the transparency and also accountability during the process of policy formulation.
Thank you so much, Gloria. That is really good questions and answer, and knowing it. I really think that the risk to having all these Chinese people from China and really spreading everywhere. They mean the infiltration plan is so long ago starting it, and now we are seeing the result. It's amazing. Peter, it's so great to see you again, and I'm sure you have some question for Gloria or Bonnie. Please go ahead and ask them. Thank you,
No,
Peter.
I don't think I have a real question, but I
Okay,
just like to add some points to Gloria's point about the Northern Telecom.
okay.
say prior to Northern Telecom, there's a company by the name of Bell Northern Research. That company was a researching company dealing with telecommunication, which was say like not a lot of people remember this company. But say prior to the Chinese officially announce the 1,000 people plan, actually the Chinese telecom company are grabbing a lot of our engineer or our scientists to work in China, because I work in IT industry in the old days, and a lot of my friends went back to China because of, say, most of them are from Hong Kong, and even some of them are local born, right?
Yeah.
But because the Chinese company offered them 2 times, 3 times of their Canadian salary, that's why a lot of good engineer or scientists went back to China. That is response to say, I don't think the Chinese company are really stealing the pattern, but they do a brain drain to train the best of our scientists and engineering back to China. So that's the first point I'd like to point out. The second point I want to echo to what Gloria just talked about, how these United Front organization infiltrate to the Canadian political scene. They are not just trying to get into the federal level or the provincial level. Now they even get into the local level, which is the city, the town, and the school board. So we feel it. Say like it just happened. The small city that I living in here for many years, we just have a mayor election, and I see the United Front organization people are all coming out to support a candidate, who is very close tied with the Chinese government, I believe, because I follow this guy for the last 25 years, and I know him personally. I see the change and all this. So it is very scary. The more I know about it, the more I read about it, the more I
I
follow
agree.
about it. They are right
Yeah.
here. That's it. Whether
Thank you
you
so
like it or
much,
not.
Peter. Yeah, you're right, Peter. I mean, Gloria and Peter saying so true. No matter we like it or not, they are everywhere, including our country in United States. Thank you so much, Peter. Rika, thank you. Welcome to our stage. And I am really sorry for your wait, but give me 30 more seconds, okay?
Hi.
We
Yes.
I
Hi.
have one more thing to say, and I'm gonna turn it over to you to ask Gloria or Bonnie. If anybody can see our link, we do have a new program on Friday, same time, and it's about the Australia Lifeboat Plan. So if anybody interested, just 2 more days, and please join us to our discussion on the Australia Lifeboat Plan. So much, and please, Rika,
Sorry,
go ahead
Mariana.
and
I think
ask.
so.
Yes,
The event coming on Friday will be in Cantonese. Am I correct?
yes, it's in
Oh, awesome.
Cantonese.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I'm just
Thank
so
you so
concerned.
much.
Thank you. Hey, Rika, how are you
Okay,
doing?
Yes. Good. Hi.
Rika, go ahead and ask the questions. Thank you
Yes.
so much for letting me talk first. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone. I'll be very quick. So about Nortel, there's actually a very in-depth article by Sam Cooper in Global News. It's called "Inside the Chinese Military Attack on Nortel," and I'll just very, very quickly summarize what it described. It described that People Liberation Army, the cyber war unit, operates from Shanghai, actually have hundreds of hackers working day and night to suck data from Western industries, including Nortel. So they actually literally hack into the system and download tons of documents, designs, and so on. And also, there's Nortel. They have, Huawei actually they created a facade company, and then they buy equipment from Nortel. And then what they did is they disassemble it, reverse engineer it, put it back together, and send it back to Nortel for refund. So that's how they steal the technology as well. And the last point is uh, they also planted electronic bugs in the Nortel facilities and planted spies as well. And also they use Chinese PhD students as through the Thousand Talent program who are hired by Nortel to actually just literally steal research. So this is in depth in that article. Again, it's called Inside the Chinese Military Attack on Nortel by Sam Cooper. So you can Google it and look into more detail. Thank you.
Thank you so much. You know, it's funny though, tonight, after talking to Gloria and Bonnie in Cantonese program, I did some research about the infiltration, by CCP in everywhere in the world. And it's kind of give me some idea how they really spending so much money and effort to doing it. But then after tonight and really hearing more information, scary. They are everywhere. And I just not trying to, giving you guys some scary thought, but just think about if China conquered the world, what is the world's gonna be? Anyway, that's just my thinking after hearing all this, and give me so much more information. I can really do a lot more research. And at the last 5 minutes, Bonnie, do you have anything that you want to have some last comment for our audience?
Oh yeah, sure. Thank you. So I think just now I didn't answer a question on the Australia aspect. So I think we have some measures, we have some regulations for the candidates in the parliament to trying to get elected. Before we have some screening and some regulations to check on their backgrounds, whether they are related or involved in other foreign like organizations or like foreign states intelligence, something like that. But then like despite we know that there are some measures or there are actual regulations, whenever something is like kind of discovered or uncovered, no one is actually taking the action, despite maybe the public is calling it out and also the media is reporting on it, but no actual measures have been carried out. That's why Gladys Liu is still here. And also regarding the PM story, like the last name of the previous PM. And actually, right now we have Scott Morrison as our prime minister, which is his term I think is ending soon. But then he is actually actively defending for Gladys Liu as well. He even hosted like a conference or something saying like how good Gladys is. And of course, a lot of Australians actually do think it is humiliating, but then no action has been done. So I think that's a governmental level of infiltration by the Chinese government is very serious, and no one is like, despite we know that there are all signs of it everywhere, but then no one is actually taking active measures to kind of like fight back or to eradicate that infiltration. So another point leading to my next the next thing that I want to say is I think I mentioned about the Democratic Alliance already. So this is kind of the reason why we have to start a new political party, which is guaranteed there's no Chinese infiltration, because actually we are all victims under the Chinese Communist Party. So we have got Hong Kong candidates, we have got Uyghur Australian candidates, we have got Tibetan Australian candidates, and also Drew Pavlou himself as the part of the party. So this is kind of a reason why we have to get new political parties like on board to kind of show a contrast, and also because election is coming, so this can kind of pressurize other parties, other candidates on their China stance and how they are reacting to the foreign interference. by the Chinese Communist Party, because we can show the huge contrast in our party, like our stance on the China issue and other parties' stance on it. So I think this is the main reason why we're actively working on this plan, and also trying to make sure that there is a new political party trying to fight back on the Chinese infiltration, and voters can have an alternative rather than voting for the existing old parties that are really soft or get infiltrated already. They can have new choice, new option to support us and also grow this as a movement. So I think maybe I'll mention about what kind of like further actions we can do very quickly as well. So I think for the rainforest issue, I've already mentioned, like you can follow Bob Brown Foundation, BOBBRON, BRWON, sorry. Okay, so Bob Brown Foundation. And then they have the latest news on what's happening with their protests against the CCP infiltration there. And also we can also join the grassroots movements. Like I think there are some organizations or some like grassroots activists, they are also concerned about human rights and also the refugee rights and stuff like that. So basically we have a common ground to work on in terms of like human rights and the activism about that. So we can kind of like make conversations with them, educate them, and learn from them about the human rights abuses in Australia, in other places, and also tell them about our experiences, trying to coordinate a movement that can pressurize the current corrupted governments and infiltrated governments to do actual actions. Because I believe that there's still democracy in Australia, and the government will still respond to any public outrage or any public movements. So I think this is one of the ways to go ahead. And also another thing is, if you are an Australian or if you have voting rights or the rights to be elected, please do so. Use your civil rights to get the most out of it, to eradicate the infiltration coordinated by the Chinese government in Australian soil. So I think that's most of my points that I want to mention. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bonnie. I think I would definitely try to join the foundation, the Bob Book Foundation, because I really believe we have to protect rainforests. So, Gloria, at the last couple of minutes, do you have anything you want to add before we end our event? This is such a good conversation. I've enjoyed so much. Before Gloria to come back, I would like to ask anybody that if you don't know about us, we are Hong Kong Voice. If you see our top on this room, that you will see a little green houses. You can click in there. You can join our club, and you will see all our events in the future. And I'm really, really grateful for our guests tonight. And HKD, hey, it was great co-host with you. And thank you for audience joining us and kind of having some really deep discussion to know more about what's going on in the world about the CCP infiltration plan. But Gloria, if you come back, you can go ahead and help us to comment the last things about Canada. If not, I guess she's have
Yeah. If she's not
HKD.
here,
Yeah,
yeah. Just want to mention. Thank you, Rika, for coming up here as well. And giving
yeah.
some insight. Yeah. I've asked him. I've just asked him for the link that he mentioned. And if you guys are interested, just text me and I'll forward the link to you guys if you want to. Just very appreciate Rika. He's a friend of mine. He's been a really great friend since I've come to Canada, really. Just thank you so much. And I just want to mention again how grateful I am to have the two guests here with us, because
Me
they've been
too.
so helpful. This is actually the second event that they've been joining us. The first time was in the Cantonese room, in the Hong Kong HKD movement room, where we were like it was 2 hours. We run over like the event was like 4 hours in total. We run over like for 2 hours. It was really really
But they
exhausting
are
for them.
so good for us. I mean, that
Yeah.
I'm really grateful for it. Yes.
Yeah, I cannot say how grateful I am.
Me
Really.
too. Me too.
Yeah, just thank you so much, Bonnie and Gloria. And yeah, I guess we hit our 1.5 hour mark, and
Yep.
I think it's been a very great night, don't you think, Mariana?
Absolutely. I learned so much. I feel like I just learned a lesson tonight and have a course. Now I want to go back to my computer and do all the research what they just talk about.
Yeah. So well, it's getting late here, so why don't we call it a night?
Yep.
And
We
yeah,
Oh,
will
we'll
do
see
that.
everyone.
sorry,
Hi,
I'm back.
Gloria.
I'm back.
Hey.
Okay.
Okay.
Can I just say a few words?
Of
Yeah,
course. Of course.
Sure, of
because just
course.
now I noticed that I've been muted. Yeah, and yes, I just after we have talked so much about the challenge, right, as a result of China
Right.
infiltration, I think it
Mm-hmm.
is very important for us to think about how we can combat China interference around the world as well as in our own country. I think we need to tackle the challenge from different dimensions. Now, internationally, I think it is of utmost importance for us to encourage an international alliance being formed, either as among the Five Allies or even to be expanded to include all the liberal democracies as well, to uh, develop a comprehensive and multilateral approach towards uh, towards China. And also, we also need an effective strategy to combat communist infiltration, as well as sanctioning CCP from all aspects, including but not limited to military, economic, political, and cultural aspects. Now, from our local government, meaning the Canadian government level, I would say the reinstatement of the Canada China relations to continue our hearings on various experts in order to promote a more forceful policy towards China is very essential. We also need to advocate for a national commission to be set up with a national reporting mechanism to collaborate with three levels of government to detect, combat foreign influence operations. Now, we also need to pass the Foreign Agent Registration Act to mandatorily require all individuals, organizations, and companies working with foreign governments to register with our government to enhance transparency and accountability in our policy formulation process. Last but not least, we also need to educate and raise awareness among governments, uh, civil society, and private sectors about the challenge of such foreign influence operation on Canadian soil. And CSIS, as the intelligence agency, also need to do more public education to raise awareness. From the perspective of civil society, I think I agree with Bonnie that we need to form a multicultural alliance with other allies, with other diaspora communities under a common threat from the Chinese Communist Party. We also need to exchange experience and also experiences and strategies in developing a systemic and effective strategy to lobby our government for policy changes. And we also need to create a good enough pressure on our government so that they will be more responsive to address our concerns. As we always say, together we will be stronger and we would be able to form a stronger lobbying team to push for positive policy changes. Thank you so much for having me tonight.
Thank you so much. I totally agree with you. You know, we are together can be stronger. And this is a great really great sentence to end tonight. And I definitely would like to see Bonnie and Gloria come back and have more discussion with us. And HKD, are you ready to say goodbye to all the audience and thank you for all their support and
Yeah,
really
yeah.
a great night.
Thank you so much, guys. Just want to say thank you again for two of you, Gloria and Bonnie, for being here again, once again, and giving us so much information. And thank you everyone for being here and listening and asking questions as well. Thank you so much.
And thank you for Ricky and Peter, come up and have some question and some, more information for us. And I will end the room in 10 seconds. And thank you again and see you next time. Have a
See you
good
next time, everyone.
evening.
Thank
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 you.
you so
you.
much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3,
That's creative.
2, 1. Bye bye.
Bye.